The early morning air was crisp, with the faint scent of pine lingering in the wind. Snow blanketed the dense forest, muffling the sounds of wildlife. Beneath a canopy of tall evergreens, a mother wolf moved cautiously through the snow-covered terrain. Her thin frame, though weakened, carried a determination that had sustained her through countless challenges. Her golden eyes scanned the forest floor, searching for anything that could sustain her, or her newborn pup waiting back in the den. This was no ordinary morning. The wolf had been drawn by an unfamiliar scent, a sign of something amiss in the forest she called home. Her keen instincts told her to stay vigilant. As she approached a narrow clearing, a sudden metallic glint caught her eye. The source of her unease became clear. A trap, cruelly hidden beneath layers of snow and debris. The wolf froze, her ears flicking back in fear as she realized the peril she faced. A faint whimper echoed from a short distance, confirming her worst fears. Her pup had wandered too close. Not far from this scene, an old man named Walter was making his rounds. Walter had lived on the edge of the forest for decades, his life marked by a quiet routine and a deep respect for nature. In his 70s, his wiry frame still carried the strength of a man who had worked with his hands all his life. Every morning, he would check his modest traps, not for sport, but for survival. He hunted sparingly, only taking what he needed to sustain himself through the harsh winters. That morning, Walter noticed something unusual. The fresh snow showed faint tracks leading deeper into the forest. Wolf tracks. He paused, his weathered face tightening with concern. "Something's not right," he muttered to himself. The wolves rarely ventured so close to human traps, and their appearance often meant trouble. He adjusted the fur-lined cap on his head and followed the tracks cautiously, his hunting rifle slung over one shoulder. As Walter approached the clearing, the sight before him stopped him in his tracks. The mother wolf stood rigid, her body positioned protectively between the trap and her pup, who lay motionless beside it. Walter's heart clenched at the sight of the tiny creature, alive but frightened and visibly weak. The mother growled low, her fur bristling as she fixed her gaze on the intruder. But Walter wasn't afraid. He had seen the fear and desperation in her eyes many times before, in animals and in himself. Carefully, Walter knelt in the snow, placing his rifle to the side as a gesture of peace. He reached into his satchel, retrieving a scrap of dried meat he had brought as a snack. "Easy now," he said in a soft, steady voice. "I'm not here to hurt you." The wolf's growl softened, but didn't cease entirely. Her body remained tense, her instincts warning her not to trust too easily. Walter stayed still, holding out the food and waiting patiently. After what felt like an eternity, the mother wolf took a cautious step forward, her golden eyes darting between Walter and her pup. She sniffed the air, her nose twitching as the scent of the meat reached her. Finally, she took the offering, retreating to her pup's side to nudge him gently. Walter saw his chance. Moving slowly, he approached the trap, his gloved hand steady as he inspected its cruel mechanism. "Whoever set this wasn't thinking about what they'd catch," he muttered under his breath. With careful precision, Walter released the trap, freeing the wolf pup's tiny paw. The pup whimpered, but its cries were soon silenced by its mother's comforting licks. Walter stood, brushing the snow from his knees. He knew he couldn't leave them here, not in their weakened state. "You've got a fight ahead of you," he said softly, "but I'll make sure you've got a chance." Walter retrieved a worn blanket from his satchel, spreading it out in the snow. He coaxed the mother wolf and her pup onto it, their hesitation gradually giving way to trust. Wrapping them securely, he carried them back toward his cabin, each step slow and deliberate. The forest was silent, save for the crunch of snow beneath his boots. Walter's thoughts raced as he considered what the coming days would bring. He didn't know if the wolves would survive, but he knew he had to try. The warmth of Walter's cabin enveloped them as he stepped inside, carefully cradling the mother wolf and her pup in the blanket. The flickering light of the fireplace cast a soft glow across the room, its heat quickly melting the snow clinging to their fur. Walter laid them down gently on a pile of old quilts he kept in the corner, a space that now became their sanctuary. The mother wolf growled faintly, her body still tense as she shielded her pup. Walter raised his hand slowly, his voice calm and steady. "I know, girl. You don't trust me yet," he said, kneeling at a safe distance. "But I'm going to help you. You just need to let me." Walter moved about the cabin, gathering supplies. He boiled water on the stove and prepared a simple broth, ladling it into a small bowl. Placing it near the mother wolf, he retreated to give her space. Her sharp eyes watched his every move, but hunger soon overpowered her fear. She leaned forward, lapping at the warm liquid. For the first time, Walter noticed how thin she was, her ribs visible beneath her matted fur. The wolf pup whimpered weakly, its tiny body trembling. Walter grabbed an old cloth and wrapped it around the pup, creating a makeshift nest to keep it warm. He knelt down again, holding out another scrap of meat. "This is for you," he said softly, setting it within reach. The mother wolf hesitated before taking it, her sharp teeth barely grazing his gloved hand. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a start. Hours passed, and the cabin grew quieter as the wolves settled in. The mother wolf dozed lightly, her body coiled protectively around her pup. Walter sat in his rocking chair by the fire, his thoughts drifting. He hadn't planned for this. His modest supplies were barely enough for himself, let alone 2 unexpected guests. Yet, looking at the wolves, he felt a deep sense of purpose. "You came to the right place," he muttered. "We'll get through this together." The next morning, the forest outside was blanketed in fresh snow, the world still and peaceful. Inside the cabin, the mother wolf stirred as Walter prepared his breakfast. Her golden eyes followed him as he moved, a trace of curiosity replacing the fear that had dominated her gaze. She watched as he cut small pieces of food, setting them aside for her. Her pup, now a little steadier, nuzzled against her, its soft whimpers a reminder of the life she fought so hard to protect. Walter approached cautiously, kneeling to offer the food. This time, the wolf didn't growl. She sniffed the air, her nose twitching before taking the meal from his hand. Walter smiled faintly. "We're making progress, aren't we?" he said, his tone gentle. Days turned into a week, and the bond between Walter and the wolves began to grow. The mother wolf, whom Walter had started calling Luna, allowed him closer each day. She watched intently as he cared for her pup, cleaning its small wound and ensuring it stayed warm. Walter, in turn, marveled at her strength and devotion. "You're a good mother, Luna," he said one evening, stroking her head cautiously. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. The pup, whom he named Aspen, quickly became the heart of the household. Its playful yips filled the cabin as it regained its strength, bounding clumsily across the wooden floor. Luna would nudge it gently, her eyes softening as she watched her baby thrive. Walter found himself laughing more than he had in years, the little family bringing life to his quiet home. But Walter knew their time together couldn't last forever. Luna was a creature of the wild, her instincts tied to the forest outside. As much as he wanted to keep them safe within the warmth of his cabin, he knew they belonged to the world beyond its walls. "When the time comes, I'll let you go," he said quietly, gazing at Luna. But not yet, not until you're ready." Luna seemed to understand. She rested her head on her paws, her eyes meeting Walter's in a silent exchange of trust and gratitude. For now, they were safe. And for now, that was enough. As winter deepened, the cabin became a sanctuary, not just for survival, but for connection. Walter and Luna's bond continued to grow in quiet, meaningful moments. Luna, once wary and defensive, began to trust Walter in small but profound ways. She allowed him to sit closer during their evenings by the fire, her golden eyes softening as she rested her head on her paws. Aspen, ever playful, became a bridge between them, his energetic antics drawing laughter from Walter and gentle nudges from his mother. One afternoon, Walter decided it was time to test the boundaries of their trust. The storm had passed, leaving the forest blanketed in a dazzling coat of fresh snow. "We can't stay cooped up forever," he said, grabbing his heavy coat and boots. Luna watched him closely as he opened the cabin door, a hint of curiosity flickering in her gaze. With Aspen tucked safely in her care, she followed Walter into the clearing. The cold air was sharp but invigorating, and Aspen yipped with delight as his tiny paws made contact with the snow. Luna stayed close, her protective instincts intact, but she allowed herself moments of exploration. Walter watched them with quiet admiration, marveling at the resilience of the mother wolf and the boundless energy of her pup. As they moved through the forest, Walter began to notice small changes in Luna's behavior. She no longer flinched when he reached out to her, and her growls were replaced by low, contented murmurs. She even allowed Aspen to playfully tug at Walter's boots, a sight that made him chuckle. "You're turning into quite the little troublemaker," he said, lifting the pup gently into his arms. Back at the cabin, Walter reflected on how much his life had changed since meeting Luna and Aspen. The once silent evenings were now filled with the sounds of life. Aspen's playful yips, Luna's quiet sighs, and the crackling of the fire as they all settled in for the night. Walter realized that for the first time in years, he didn't feel lonely. However, the outside world was not far away. One evening, as Walter chopped wood near the cabin, he noticed tracks in the snow, fresh and unfamiliar. They were human, and they led toward the edge of the forest, his brow furrowed with concern. Hunters, perhaps, or someone who didn't understand the delicate balance of the wilderness. He knew the presence of a mother wolf and her pup would draw attention if word got out. Walter decided to stay vigilant, ensuring Luna and Aspen remained safe. He reinforced the cabin's perimeter and kept his rifle close, though he hoped he wouldn't need it. "We'll keep you hidden," he murmured to Luna, who watched him from the doorway. "No one's going to harm you while you're under my roof." As days turned into weeks, the tracks reappeared sporadically, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked outside the sanctuary of the cabin. Walter began to prepare for the inevitable: Luna and Aspen's return to the wild. He spent evenings studying the terrain, mapping safe routes that would lead them to areas far from human interference. But parting with them would not be easy. Luna had become more than just a guest in his home. She had become a companion, her quiet strength a source of comfort. Aspen, too, had carved out a place in Walter's heart, his playful nature filling the old man's days with joy. One snowy morning, as the forest lay silent, Walter sat by the fire with Luna and Aspen at his side. He stroked Luna's fur, his voice soft but steady. "You've got a whole world out there waiting for you," he said, "and when the time comes, I'll make sure you find it." Luna looked up at him, her golden eyes meeting his in a moment of understanding. She nuzzled Aspen gently, as if to reassure him. For now, they were safe. But Walter knew their journey together was nearing its end, and he was determined to make their final days in the cabin as meaningful as their first. The snow had begun to melt, signaling the arrival of early spring. The forest, once muted and covered in white, was slowly coming back to life. Streams of sunlight filtered through the tall evergreens, and the sound of trickling water echoed as frozen streams began to thaw. Inside Walter's cabin, life continued with an air of quiet normalcy, but the old man knew their days together were numbered. Luna's strength had fully returned. Her coat, now thick and glossy, shimmered in the soft light of the cabin. She moved with the grace and confidence of a wolf who had regained her place in the natural world. Aspen, no longer a fragile pup, had grown into a spirited young wolf, his energy boundless as he playfully pounced on Walter's boots or nudged at Luna's side. Walter had spent weeks preparing for their eventual departure. He had mapped out the safest routes, identified areas rich in prey, and even scouted spots far from human activity where Luna and Aspen could thrive. But every step of preparation weighed heavily on his heart. "You've got everything you need to survive," he said one evening, his voice tinged with sadness. "But it doesn't make letting go any easier." Luna seemed to sense the change in Walter's demeanor. Her golden eyes often lingered on him, as though she understood what he was preparing for. She stayed close, nuzzling against his side during quiet moments, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Aspen, oblivious to the coming separation, continued to fill the cabin with his lively spirit, bringing fleeting moments of joy amidst the heaviness of goodbye. One morning, as Walter prepared his usual breakfast, a knock came at the door. Startled, he glanced at Luna, who immediately moved to shield Aspen, her body low and tense. Walter grabbed his rifle, his steps cautious as he approached the door. When he opened it, he found a stranger standing on the porch, a man dressed in heavy hunting gear, his eyes scanning the cabin's interior. "Morning," the man said gruffly, his gaze sharp. "I've been tracking a wolf pack in the area. Thought I'd check if you'd seen anything unusual." Walter's heart raced, but his face remained calm. "Wolves? Haven't seen any," he replied, his voice steady. "Not surprising, though. They tend to keep their distance from folks like us." The hunter narrowed his eyes, his suspicion evident, but after a moment he nodded. "Just keep an eye out," he said. "They've been circling closer to town. Might be trouble." With that, the man turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving Walter standing in the doorway, his hands trembling slightly. That night, Walter sat by the fire, his mind racing. The hunter's visit had confirmed what he already knew. Luna and Aspen couldn't stay much longer. The longer they remained, the greater the risk of being discovered. "It's time," he said aloud, his voice breaking. Luna, lying beside the fire, lifted her head, her ears twitching as though she understood. The next morning, Walter led Luna and Aspen into the forest. The air was crisp, and the sunlight dappled the snow-covered ground as they moved silently through the trees. Walter carried a small satchel filled with supplies, dried meat, water, and a map marked with safe paths. Luna followed closely, her gaze watchful, while Aspen bounded ahead, his youthful energy undeterred by the gravity of the moment. When they reached the edge of a wide clearing, Walter stopped. He knelt down, placing the satchel on the ground and motioning for Luna to come closer. She approached cautiously, her golden eyes fixed on his face. "This is as far as I can take you," Walter said softly, his voice trembling. "The rest is up to you." He reached out, his hand brushing against Luna's fur one last time. Aspen, sensing the tension, nuzzled Walter's hand, his playful demeanor momentarily subdued. Walter swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "You're ready for this," he said. You've got each other, and you've got the strength to make it." Luna let out a soft whine, her eyes locked on Walter's as if to say goodbye. Then, with a final nudge of her nose against his hand, she turned and began to lead Aspen into the forest. Walter watched as their forms disappeared among the trees, his heart heavy yet filled with pride. As the forest fell silent, Walter stood alone in the clearing, the sunlight warming his face. He wiped a tear from his cheek, whispering, "Goodbye, Luna. Stay safe." With a deep breath, he turned and began the walk back to his cabin, the sounds of the forest accompanying him. Though his heart ached, he knew he had done the right thing. And in the quiet of the wilderness, he felt a profound sense of peace. The days following Luna and Aspen's departure were quiet, almost too quiet. Walter's cabin, once filled with their presence, now felt emptier than ever. The rhythmic crackling of the fire and the chirping of birds outside became his only companions again. Yet, despite the solitude, Walter felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew he had done what was best for them, ensuring they had a chance to thrive where they truly belonged. Walter found himself often looking out at the forest from his porch, his gaze lingering on the path they had taken. He would wonder how far they had gone, whether Aspen was growing strong under Luna's guidance, and if they had found a safe place to call home. These thoughts brought him both comfort and longing, a reminder of the connection they had forged. One crisp spring morning, as Walter tended to his small garden, a familiar sound reached his ears, a soft howl carried by the breeze. He froze, his heart skipping a beat. Could it be? He set down his tools and turned toward the forest, his eyes scanning the tree line. Moments later, a figure emerged from the shadows. Luna, her golden eyes bright, and Aspen, now a young and robust wolf, standing proudly by her side. Walter's breath caught in his throat as they approached. Luna moved with her usual grace, her gaze fixed on Walter as though she were returning to a trusted friend. Aspen bounded ahead, his playful nature still intact despite his growing strength. Walter knelt as they reached him, his voice breaking with emotion. "Luna? Aspen, you came back." Luna nuzzled against Walter's hand, her touch gentle yet firm, as if to reassure him that they were safe. Aspen, ever curious, circled around Walter, his tail wagging enthusiastically. Walter laughed, his heart swelling with joy. "You've grown so much," he said, stroking Aspen's thick fur, "and you're stronger than ever." Their visit was brief, but it was enough. Luna and Aspen lingered for a while, basking in the warmth of the bond they shared with Walter. They didn't need words to communicate. The trust and love between them spoke volumes. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Luna let out a soft whine, signaling it was time for them to return to the wild. Walter stood as they prepared to leave, his hand resting on Luna's head one last time. "Take care of each other," he said softly. "And remember, you'll always have a place here." Luna stepped back, her golden eyes meeting his in a silent farewell. Aspen gave one final playful nudge before following his mother into the forest. As they disappeared into the trees, Walter felt a strange mixture of sadness and peace. He knew their visits might be rare, but the bond they had formed would remain unbroken. The forest had brought them together, and it would always hold the memory of their time shared. That night, as Walter sat by the fire, he reflected on the journey they had taken together. From that first day in the snow to their bittersweet farewell, Luna and Aspen had reminded him of life's most important lessons: resilience, trust, and the power of kindness. They had changed his life as much as he had changed theirs, leaving a legacy of love that stretched far beyond the walls of his cabin. Walter gazed at the flickering flames, a small smile playing on his lips. "Thank you," he whispered into the quiet room, "for everything." If Luna and Aspen's story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Together, we can inspire compassion for all living creatures and celebrate the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals.